Hello, everyone. Welcome into the On the Rim podcast presented by Heart of the Continent Hoops. I am your host, Elliott. This is the show where you are able to keep up with everything happening in the CEBL, your one-stop shop, whatever you want to call it. I'm super excited to do Season 2 here. We had a little bit of a Season 1 test to see how this was maybe going to go, and it seemed to be, I did a little bit of a poll on social media and the other platforms just kind of to see if this was what somebody or some people were looking for when it came to content, just to try to keep up with the league, with the CBL just being this constantly moving piece and league that constantly has all these moving parts. And for somebody who follows the league very closely and loves the league as it is, I thought this would be a great opportunity to have somebody who is a little tapped in, follows the league. This would be a way for those who are maybe considered to be casuals or maybe even hardcore fans as well who want to know even more about the league and kind of dive deep into some stuff. I think this is the place for you. So, obviously, as I mentioned, we did a Season 1. There was a few episodes in there just to kind of test the waters. We're trying it out for 2026. This is going to be a full summer of content. This is going to be, as you already know, you probably have seen my stuff on the Heart of Continent Hoops website. This is another way for you to keep up with the league. So the articles are more your day-to-day stuff. There will be some weekly articles in there. There's going to be lots of content on there. But when it comes to this show, and I'm going to get into how this is going to work as the season gets along, this will be your place to kind of like, here's your monthly update. This is going to be more of a monthly update episode. I guess I could get into it right away here. The plan for this is to be more of to begin as we end February, and this is the February update episode. We get into March, March, and maybe a little bit of April are more of your episodes of monthly updates. So just kind of like what's been happening in the league in the last month, who's been signing, who's been making these announcements, that sort of thing. So we're going to get into the new playoff structure, which I know I have not posted about yet on Heart of the Continent Hoops. So I'm going to give you my take here. So that might be a little bit of a longer part to the episode. But my plan is for the first few months, I'm hoping we can get a little bit more of a monthly update, just to kind of, because some of the days in the league are slow. There's been a few days this week, and actually the last 2 weeks, we haven't had too many news. Not too many players not many teams have really announced signings yet. So the hope here is that we can do some monthly episodes for February, March, and April might get a monthly episode. We might change it up there. We might do like a semi-monthly episode. But the hope is that once we hit April, we're going to do some team previews. Like teams will get hopefully their own episodes. I'm going to do articles on them as well. So if you just like the written content, you can stay up to date on the written content on the website at heartofthecontinenthoops.blog. But the hope is the episodes when it comes to the podcast here is that you get some audio content. It'll be more, obviously, as I mentioned already, monthly. And hopefully once we get the season started, it's going to be weekly. So you're either going to get an episode every week, depending on what's been going on. Maybe you get one every 2 weeks, like bi-weekly. The hope is weekly episodes of what's been going on in the league, who's doing what, that sort of thing. So the hope is that we can kind of keep you up to date with what's going on as this league is constantly changing. So many things are happening over the course of the entire summer, but you can kind of keep up with what's happening using this show. So that's the hope for when it comes to the content aspect. So we're going to keep it weekly. Depending, there might be other episodes that happen over the course of that time. You never know. It might be one of those things where lots of events happen, and so I might post not an emergency episode. You never know. It might be emergency, but hopefully this is weekly content that we can get to you as much as I possibly can keep it to weekly. Obviously, I have a full-time or it's a part-time job that requires me to do some full-time things, and I have some other things happening as well at the same time. So the hope is this is weekly, if not weekly, for sure bi-weekly episodes of just kind of what's going on in the league so you can keep up to date. Now, before we fully kick off the 2026 season, because we are now fully into the 2026 season, I'm a little bit different when it comes to how I think the off season runs. Obviously, as soon as 2025 ends, most people say, yep, that's the 2026 off season, especially in the CEBL. As soon as it becomes fall and the winter time, most people say, yep, that's CEBL off season. To me, I'm a little bit different. it's kind of it is the off season, but it really isn't the off season for me as somebody who considers to take this league a little bit more seriously than some other people may. But you definitely should take it seriously. This is a fantastic league. If you don't really know much about it, we're going to get all up in it about everything here on this show about the league and everything. I consider the off season to be more so that February, like first day of free agency, February 1st. Maybe you can do December because obviously you saw some updates this year from some teams already. Obviously the CEBL announced stuff before free agency when it came to coaching, and obviously the Xavier Moon signing, which we're going to get into today in this episode because I'm going to count that as part of February. But more so February 1st is that first day of the offseason. So obviously we're going to get into the signings that have happened and everything that's happened since February 1st. So everything that's happened in that offseason / the actual considered to what I consider the offseason in that February 1st window. So before we can get to any of that, I do want to just quickly again congratulate the Niagara Airlines for going back to back. Obviously fantastic season from them. It sucks to see, and we're going to go over it in the coaches section. It sucks to see Vic Razzo go, but to end on back-to-back championships, a team that had struggled in those big games and had gotten to the championship game in 2023, you lose to the Scarborough Shooting Stars, a team that had been building since they had joined the league. It was great to see. It was good to see them win. Obviously, they've been a fantastic defensive team the entire time that they've been in the league. It's just good to see. So again, congratulations to them. But now it's 2026, and so it's time for some change. And obviously, like we'll see. Maybe we have a new champion this year, but there was a few changes here that started the off season. Obviously, there was the impending, looming chance of the playoff structure changing. So I'm going to throw that graphic up here right now. Basically, the league had decided that they wanted to change the playoff structure. They were no longer satisfied, I guess, with championship weekend. Obviously, that was something to help build the league around at the beginning, but it wasn't going to be the thing to do going forward. And so, as you can see on the screen, the league has now changed the playoff structure for 2026. So, playoffs will begin on August 6th, where the 1 seed in both conferences, the Eastern and Western Conference, the 1 seed will play the 4 seed and the 2 seed will play the 3 seed. So for 2026, no longer will the 5 seeds be able to make the playoffs. You have to be in the top 4 seeds of your conference. So 1 will play the 4, as I said. The 2 will play the 3. Those winners will then advance to the conference finals on August 8th. Again, both of those 2 series are still one single game elimination. Then, if you win your conference finals beginning on August 12th, the league has now decided that they will go to a best of 3 series for the finals. Now, I've not had a chance to really say my opinion too much on this subject. I'm a big fan that they have decided to change the finals to best of 3. That's what it should be. The best of 1 is, I love the NCAA tournament. If you know me personally, I'm a huge college basketball fan. But the problem for me is that it still has too much, especially in professional basketball, there's way too much variance. You can't, college basketball is variance as it is, so I'm okay with a single game. My biggest issue is with professional basketball, single game, it's a little crazy for me. So I'm glad that they finally decided to make this a best of 3. I do wish that they had made everything a best of 3, because that's what I would prefer. I think that would be best for the league. Obviously, then that makes the playoffs longer, and you'd have to cut the regular season shorter. You'd probably have to go from 24 games back to 20, which I wouldn't mind. I don't mind the 24-game season. I'm also glad that we're getting still the 24-game season plus a 3-round final. That's okay with me. I can deal with that. The other piece that's interesting to me, and I think it might end up being pretty important, and maybe not this year, maybe in future final series, if they continue this, would be the fact that the lower seed in the finals will host game 1, while the high seed will host games 2 and 3, and obviously game 3s if necessary. My biggest thing is normally game 1 sets the tone for a series, even if it's best of 3. So for me, having the lower seed team, yes, I get it. It's so that both teams get a chance to host a finals home playoff game. The biggest thing for me is that lower seed then gets to set that tone for game one, so it's actually not too bad for being the low seed. Now, obviously, if both one seeds from both conferences make it, is it really going to make that much of a difference? Obviously, record will play into it, and maybe there will be a discrepancy. Like, obviously, this year, yes, Niagara won the championship, but they were not the best team going into championship weekend this year. So, we'll see how that goes. But either way, I think that game one is going to be pretty important to the finals this year. So again, I'm very happy about the change. I'm glad that they've decided to do it, and I think it's something positive moving forward. I did love championship weekend. I would like for them to bring that back at some point. Like, obviously, I love the way that the CFL does the Grey Cup and all those other things, and so like the Grey Cup festival and the weekend and whatnot. I think that that's really good for the league, and I thought it was really good. Obviously, I'm from Winnipeg, and so being able to be at championship weekend this past summer was fantastic. I thought it was great for the league. I thought it was great for the CEBL. I thought it was great for the city. So hopefully at some point and we don't know this yet. We don't know if the league will decide that they're going to do something similar to what they've done in championship weekend, just on a different scale because it's the finals and now other teams are hosting. There might be that each team obviously will get an opportunity to do stuff. So we'll see what happens. I will say I do like that they are rewarding that the higher seeded team still does get both games. I would have also liked to have seen if they had done a high seed gets game 1, low seed gets game 2, and high seed gets game 3 if necessary. I know that then that's a bit more travel, but I think it would have been a little bit better. So we'll see how it plays out. I am excited for it. So it should be a positive change to the league. Another thing we do need to talk about, if you haven't seen already, obviously the Saskatchewan Rattlers no longer are the Saskatchewan Rattlers. They're now the Saskatoon Mamba. I know online there's some mixed feelings about how this is going to work for the league when it comes to who owns the team, what the messaging for certain things are, the jerseys for this upcoming season, at least the one jersey we've seen. And I am going to throw my thoughts into the ring here. Am I a big fan of the name? Not really. I'm okay with them changing from Saskatchewan to Saskatoon, because that does open up a possibility eventually for Regina to get a team, and I think that's good. I think Regina would benefit from having a team in the league, and obviously I know the league and was probably encouraging that, and I know that management for the now Saskatoon Mamba were probably thinking that way. Now, them trying to say that they're providing basketball for the entire Saskatchewan while being the Saskatoon Mamba now is a little interesting. Like, that's why they were the Saskatchewan Rattlers, and they were able to promote for the entire province. But again, I guess the Seabears are the only team here in Manitoba, and they do try to do stuff in the entire province. So either way, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I do understand the concern from fans in the league that there's a little bit of concern when it comes to who owns the team, and we will have to wait and see. We don't know how this is going to play out. Obviously, if it's something that doesn't go well this year, hopefully the league steps in and does what they have to do, but we'll wait and see. I don't want to put too much out there yet. Again, I'm also not a big fan of the color scheme or the jerseys. I know some people like them, and some people don't like them. Either way, I think, again, too, for me, jerseys and team branding and team colors are all subjective anyways, so is it that big of a deal? No. I'm just also hoping that we get some good basketball out of them. They have not been the best team just generally in the league. I'm not even going to say, like, top whatever team. They have not been very good. So I'm hoping that this means that this will bring up the competitive floor for the league, because they've kind of just been a free win on the schedule for most teams. Or, like, yes, obviously you're going to have trap games, but when you're basically a free win to almost, like, for anybody in the league, it's not great for the league as a whole, especially as a professional league. So I'm hoping that new management will bring a little bit more jump to the team, and we'll just have to wait and see. I think it also is smart for them to move to where USask plays when it comes to that building. I think that's smarter. Obviously, you should still have some games at SaskTel. They just haven't been able to sell enough tickets there. So I think it's smarter to move to the university venue, kind of build it up, and then make that transition. Because I know most of the other teams in the league are trying to move to bigger venues now because they've built up. And Saskatoon immediately had jumped there, and I just don't think that was the smartest thing to do for them. With that out of the way, I think it's time to talk about some coaching changes. So there were so far there have been 4 different coaches named that are going to be new coaches. Now, I'm not, obviously Kyle Julius is still with Vancouver Bants. I believe he's still under contract. Some of the other teams don't announce how long some of the contracts are for certain coaches, so we don't know if they are just under contract or returning. These are the 4 coaches that teams have announced that they are going to be having new coaches. So, the first team, and it's just the easiest one for me to do, I know it's going to sound homery, whatever, because I am still at the end of the day a CBears fan. I do want the league to be good, and I'm going to cheer for I'm just going to cheer for good basketball most games. But this is my show, so I'm going to be a little bit of a homer here. We're just going to quickly talk about the CBears. They had announced pretty much basically at the end of the season last year that Mike Taylor was not returning for the CBears, and they decided that they were going to promote assistant coach Mike Rainbow to be the head coach. I think this is a fantastic this is a fantastic signing by the team, or promotion, I guess I should say is a better word. I'm a big fan of Rainbow. I love what he's done with U of W. He's built that program from the ground up. They are now a perennial top team in Canada West and in U Sports. I think the biggest thing for Rainbow, though, is just the way that he interacts with his players. I think it was a big sign I wasn't sure what the Winnipeg CBears protected list was going to look like at the end of last year, obviously with a new coach and Mike Taylor leaving and all these other things that were happening. I thought it was a really good sign that a good chunk of the players wanted to return, and we'll talk about it later. They've had a few guys, technically it's 2 only right now, but they've had 2 guys already who were pretty big piece. One was a really big piece late last year, and a guy who's been pretty big for them in the past return. So I think that's a big thing for them. And I all I've ever heard is he's a player's coach. He's a more modern coach. They also, the CBears have had issues on defense. Like Mike Taylor came in and was supposed to be that he was more of a defensive minded coach, but the defense never got there. They felt more of an offensive team that ran a lot of sets. Mike Rainbow runs a different style of offense. He likes to run something a little bit more modern, something a little bit more like what we're going to talk about with one of the other coaches in the league. So I think that lots of the teams have decided to go younger coaches, and they've seen what the Niagara River Lions did with Vic Razzo, and they're kind of trying to shift towards that. And so I think Rainbow being more of a defensive-minded coach, and you see it at the U Sports level, it's a more team-style, defensive-minded philosophy, and I think that's going to be better for the CBears. And I think that they've kind of addressed that in who they've brought in. Obviously, they still have some scoring, but either way, I think it's still big to bring in a different mouth that's going to say some different things and have a different mindset on the game, and also might be a little bit more of a player's coach. Now, the next one has to do with the Ottawa Blackjacks. This one I'm really interested to see how this goes. So, Justin Mazzulla, the brother of the Boston Celtics coach, Joe Mazzulla. So he is now the youngest coach in the league history. So he's 27 years old. He's currently the video coordinator for the Utah Jazz. He was on staff with the affiliate Salt Lake City last year, and he did a really good job. So he got a promotion. So this year, this will be his first professional head coaching position. So he has not been a head coach anywhere else. So I'm really curious to see how this goes. I'm not sure if this is about name value. I'm not sure if this is about just good things that the Blackjacks have heard, but there's not really much to know about Mazzulla. So obviously he played Division I basketball, so he's been around a little bit, so he knows. But again, it's not like he has a lot of coaching experience to go off of, like Mike Rainbow or just any other coach that's been in the league. So I'm curious to see how this goes for Ottawa. And they've been okay. They were good last year. I thought they would have been finished with a better record, but they just didn't. So we'll see how they do this year. They've brought back a lot of a good chunk of their depth pieces from last year. Obviously, they still have James Desrouin, who's their general manager. So That's not really going to change when it comes to, obviously the coach just has to coach for them, and Darroway is being the GM, and he's most of the time bringing the players, that sort of thing. It's not like Winnipeg where Mike Rainbow's the head coach GM. Same with who we're going to talk about next, and Kimball McKenzie. He is also head coach and GM. So we'll see how this plays out for Missoula. I'm really curious to see. I'm hoping they bring back a lot of their core from last year. Obviously, Isaiah Moore was really good. Javonte Smart was good. They had a good team. They were fun to watch last year. So we'll see how Missoula does. Now, I already mentioned his name, Kimball McKenzie. So he is retired from playing, and he will now be the head coach and general manager for the Niagara River Lions, replacing Victor Razzo. Victor Razzo's now in that weird role where he's just the advising role, but I'm not even sure if he's going to be advising anybody. We'll see. I'm not really sure what that's going to be, but McKenzie also, this will be his first quote-unquote experience coaching. Obviously, as I said, he played for the River Lions for a few seasons. He won 2 championships. He was a really good point guard for them. He was very good. He knew what he was doing. He ran the offense. He had a few games there when the River Lions didn't have Khalil Ahmad and some of their other guys weren't playing well. He had some big scoring performances. Just a veteran guy who ran the offense. He was coach on the floor. He was basically that. So for him to become a coach, he had said he always wanted to be, and so this isn't too surprising. But I think at this point, I thought maybe we get a year or two more out of him, maybe 2, probably 2. But so now he's going to be a head coach, and so I'm curious to see how this goes for him. He was the interim coach for Niagara College this past season for their women's team, and they went 14-2 in his time as interim coach. So I don't know. Again, a guy who really doesn't have too much coaching experience. We don't really know too much about him as a coach. And so this will be his audition to see if he gets other jobs or if this becomes his full-time thing. Now, the final coach is the Brampton Honey Badgers announced that they had brought in Alex Serta as their head coach. So he's the current assistant with the South Bay Lakers of the NBA G League. He is different than the other 2 previous coaches I had mentioned. He's got 10 years of professional coaching experience under his belt for different G League teams and also other head coaching positions. So what I found interesting, and so he and Mike Rainbow might be a little bit on the same plane there when it comes to Alex Serta might be a little bit more data driven. Obviously, I know Mike Rainbow likes to run a little bit more modern style offenses and run more modern schemes. And Serta kind of leans into more data driven stuff. So he has a very impressive resume on being different coaching staffs, being assistant coaches for offenses, for running, being kind of that quote unquote, and they call it in basketball this as well, being that offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. The defenses have been pretty okay, but it seems to be he's more of an offensive coach, and the teams that he's been a part of, whether he's been a head coach or an assistant coach, have been really good analytically when it comes to offense. So, and those teams I'm curious to see how that goes, and those teams have put up numbers. So I think for a team like the Honey Badgers, who again, just like the Saskatoon Mamba, haven't been very good in the last few seasons. Obviously they won their title in 2022, and that was when they were in Hamilton. Now that they're in Brampton, they really haven't done much. So I'm really curious to see if he kind of brings them to relevancy here and kind of props them up a little bit. Because I'm just not sure. I'm, again, a guy who's been an assistant. He's had a few other head coaching positions, but he's been mostly an assistant. So I'm really curious to see how this plays out for him as the head coach now of the Honey Badgers. Now, what everybody's been waiting for is who signed? Who's with who? Is anybody left? Is everybody just with the same team? We're going to recap all the player acquisitions that have happened since free agency open, and technically the one that happened before. So I'm going to throw up the graphic here. Here is the Eastern Conference signings for February, and obviously when we get into March, I will change it to just for March. This is the ones for February. As you can see, this is as of February 28th. So we're obviously, as I said, going to start with the Eastern Conference. Nothing too big here when it comes to the Honey Badgers. We're going to go quickly team by team, nothing too crazy. Just kind of give you a sense of who are the big names, who are some guys that I'm kind of interested to see how they play out. For the Honey Badgers, I think their first 2 signings have been interesting. Obviously, you bring back Prince Oduro. He's your typical double-double machine. He's a center who plays in the paint. He doesn't really do much outside of that. He's going to get you some blocks. He's going to play good defense. His role has kind of been up and down with them. He's been a starter. He's been a bench player. I think he's better as a bench big. He reminds me of a lot of the other bench bigs in the league that aren't too gifted offensively. They kind of just finish around the rim, play some defense, rebound, that sort of thing. So I think that's what he's going to do. The one that I think is interesting here is Danilo Juricic. So he has played the last few seasons with the Scarborough Shooting Stars. And so this is going to be his first season not with Scarborough. So he will join the Honey Badgers. And he's a stretch. He's more of he's a forward, but he has more of that 4 build, like the 4 position build, like the power forward build. But he should be playing more of the wing, playing that 3, just because he's like a shooter who his mobility really isn't there. He can kind of defend the post though. He's okay on defense. His post defense isn't great. His perimeter defense is okay. He's basically just a shooter. And I'm hoping with the Honey Badgers, he's a little bit more of an opportunity to kind of be a little bit more involved in the offense. With Scarborough, he kind of was just like a shooter, and that was it. He didn't really do much else. He kind of just hung out, and that was it. But we'll see. I'm hoping that his role expands, and I kind of think he's more of a bench piece. I'm not really sure. He's been a starter for them for a few games here and there. Nothing too crazy, and I'm not really sure he's much else other than that. So I think he's more of a bench guy. So we'll see if the Honey Badgers give him a little bit more of a leash. But I do like the addition. I think he'll be good to give them a little bit of floor spacing. As you can see from the graphic, the player that I wanted to highlight here, and we're just going to get to him right away, I think it just makes sense, is Quincy Guerrier, who re-signed with the Montreal Alliance. He was one of the best Canadian players last year. I think he's for sure top 5 when it comes to just two-way players in the league. He's probably top 3, and he's probably in the top 10 for just overall like player in the league. So I'm a little intrigued to see what they do to build around him. Last year, obviously, the late addition of Tavian Dunn-Martin helped, but it was mostly like Guerrier, and they kind of tried to put some shooters around him, but it wasn't really all shooters. Obviously, having Tavian Dunn-Martin, that was a little bit better. So we will see what they kind of come out with. I'm very curious because like I said, I think he's one of the best players in the league. He's top 3 for sure. He's probably arguably the best two-way player in the league. He can play some defense. He can do anything on the offensive end. You want him to go get a bucket at the rim, he can do that. He can hit the mid-range. He can hit the 3. He can post up. And obviously, again, he was one of the better defenders in the league. So I'm really curious to see how they build around him. The other signing was Keyshawn Barthélemy. So this is his first year professionally. He played college ball at the University of Oregon. I'm not really sure what else that we're going to get from him, just because, again, first year professionally, he seems like a guy who's going to be able to score the ball. He can shoot, and he's quick. So we'll see. Again, guys like this don't always get the biggest opportunities here in the CBL. Some do, some don't. Again, until we see who else they sign and what the other pieces look like. So this is where, when we get to April and I'm talking about the actual roster build-up, this might be a guy who's on the end of the bench and doesn't play too much, depending on who the other players Montreal brings in. I'm not too sure. It'll all depend on, like I just said, who they bring in and how this all works. So, now that one of the teams that have signed the second most players so far, and we're going to get to who hasn't signed somebody yet and who you should be waiting to see. So the Blackjacks have signed 3 players already. So Justin Jackson, Tyrell Tate, and Jacques Tajore. So Justin Jackson is a veteran of the league. Again, he's kind of like Oduro. He's a little bit of a different style of player, but just same role. He's a bench guy. I've heard that he's been good in the locker room for them, just being a veteran presence. He's more of a, he's kind of like a Juricic. He's got more of a power forward build, but he's not really super. He's a little bit more athletic than Juricic, but he's a little bit more leaner. He's a little bit more athletic, but again, he's more of a shooter. He's not a great defender. He fits more that 4 than that wing, but he can play the wing. He's played the wing for the Blackjacks for a few different games, a few different situations. So I don't know. Again, bench piece. They've kind of built up their bench. They're kind of bringing back a lot of their bench players, which is good. If you bring back the bench, maybe bring the starters. I don't know. I think if they brought back the same team, they'd probably still be a pretty good squad. Obviously, I think they need to make a few additions this year to kind of take that level up. But bring back Jackson, who, like two of the other guys that they're bringing back, are just guys that are going to be on the bench and be good pieces for them and good locker room energy. The other guy is Tyrell Tate. He, again, veteran of the league. He's been around for a while. He has been with the Blackjacks for more than a few seasons, I believe, and I'm just pulling it up here. He owns a few records in the league. This is his 7th year, by the way, but he holds a team record with Ottawa for games played, threes made, and he's second in total points. So he's been pretty important for them. He's had some big games, but again, he's just more of a 3-and-D wing. He's a career 10 points per game player. He has shot 40% from 3 in his CEBL career. You would hope that he kind of brings that back. He did have a down year last year. It wasn't the best season you'd hope for them, but for him. But we'll see if he can kind of elevate his game. He is getting older. So again, like I said with Jackson, I think he's an important bench piece for them, but I don't think that it's like you're either breaking the bank on a guy like this or you're really, again, banking on him being a big part of anything other than your bench. But solid piece nonetheless. If you want to start him, you can start him. He's still good. But again, as this league continues to get better, a guy like this might turn into a bench piece and just become a really good bench player. So he's not also in a winter league, which I think is pretty important. Like some of the other guys are in the G League and whatnot, but he's not in the winter league. So that means he's going to get to play right away, which again is pretty big in this league. If you can get a guy to come in right away and be with your team the entire season and not have to come and go through the winter league or going to NBA summer league or coming from most G League guys are done by now when it comes to the American imports. But when it comes to other guys playing in winter leagues, it is kind of a guessing game as to when you think you're going to get them. The other guy who's more recent is Justin Njok. So he is a younger player. He's been drafted by Ottawa a few times when it came to their CEBL U Sports selections in the draft. He's continuously played a bigger role year after year. He doesn't bring much else other than slashing to the rim and defense. He can rebound a little bit. Again, I'm hoping he gets a little bit of a bigger role this year. We haven't seen a ton from him. He's had a few good games here and there, but nothing fancy, nothing fantastic. So I'm really curious to see if he can elevate his game this upcoming summer. He is a guy to watch if you're looking at young players in the league. I think he's a guy that you kind of need to be aware of because I just think that at some point, just with his physical tool set being like 6'7", 225, I'm guessing on the weight. I know he's 6'7" though. Like just being that size, and he's quite built. Like you would think at some point this has got to turn over for him and really turn into something for him. And I hope it does. He seems like a good kid, and he's a good basketball player. Now, time to throw up the other graphic. So it's only 2 teams, so quickly just get into this. Obviously, he needs no introduction. Let's just go with the Bandits. Tyrese Samuel, he was the Canadian Player of the Year last year. He was one of the best players in the league, probably top 5. And he played a lot of the games last year. Both him and Guerrier left for Summer League. Guerrier was back quicker. Samuel still played a little bit. He was banged up a little bit, but I think he wants some revenge after the Western Conference semifinal game last year against the Calgary Surge. I wasn't sure if he was going to come back. I thought this was just going to be an opportunity for him to elevate his resume, and then that was going to be it. He was going to play his one season, and that was done. I'm glad he's back. He's one of the more fun players to watch in the league. He dominates the paint. Again, he's like Guerrier. He's not as much of a shooter as Guerrier is because he's more of a 5-man, but he can shoot a little bit, but he dominates the paint. He can score inside. He's a lob threat. He's going to defend. He's going to rebound. Fantastic. He's so good. So good. I'm really excited to watch him again this summer. The team with the most signings, and I'm not really too surprised, the Seabirds like to get their work done early, and again, Mike Rainbow is probably going to be from that Mike Taylor mold now, having been a part of the organization for a while, and especially I think after how last season ended with the sour taste in a lot of Seabirds fans' mouths, they still have no playoff wins through 3 seasons, with even a championship weekend appearance because of the championship weekend bye. But with the team having been decent all 3 seasons, no playoff wins. I think this is to hope to put it out there like, hey, we're still trying to compete. So obviously, quick thoughts on Xavier Moon. This is old news now. I think this is big for them. I think they need obviously Mike Taylor built his teams off of, they were better off of ball dominant guards. Obviously Jalen Harris, Justin Wright Foreman, and Teddy Allen. Even though Allen was more of a wing, I still consider him a guard because he handled the ball quite a bit. Moon fits obviously that Justin Wright Foreman mold more than the Jalen Harris mold, but I think Moon being back in the league is fantastic. We'll see if he can pick up where he left off. I'm not sure. We're going to find out. We'll see how much rust. He hasn't played in about a year and a half, I believe. It might even be just a season. So we'll see what happens. I'm not 100% sure how he's going to be, but I think the Seabirds are banking on him being pretty good. Now, for the rest of the pieces, we'll just go next in order. So Nathan Bielemu, he was huge down the stretch last season. He was their training camp invite. He had just graduated from U Sports. I wasn't sure what to get from him. His first few appearances for the Seabirds weren't great. And then as the season got on, he just got better. And I think he became one of their most important players down the stretch. So I'm really curious to see how he does in year 2. He's been fantastic over in Portugal. He's continued to get an increasing role there. And so I'm not sure how big of a role he gets with Mike Rainbow. I would think he starts, and I think he should, based off of his last year's resume. And unless they bring in other players that are good, he's also Canadian, and he's a really good Canadian player that he's just got a nose for the ball. He rebounds so hard. He showed that he can hit open shots. He also even showed a little bit of offensive game, just being able to hit off pull-ups, and he attacked the rim a little bit. But he just plays really hard defense, and I think for Mike Rainbow, he's going to need guys that are going to do that, and Bielemu feels like that prototypical Mike Rainbow guy. He can hit the catch-and-shoot shots, he plays hard defense, and he's going to dive for loose balls. The next two is a guy who I was actually really intrigued by them signing. He hasn't had the best last 2 seasons professionally, but we're going to see how he is. Isaiah Osborne. So last team he played for was the Edmonton Stingers. I was a big fan of his back in 2023 when he had a big play. Obviously, he hit the target score winner in the Seabirds' first playoff game. But otherwise, I've been a big fan of him. Again, another guy who's supposed to be 3-and-D, shoots the 3-ball, defends really well, plays really hard. So I'm really curious to see how this plays out for him. Again, as I've said, the last few stops he's had in his professional career have not been great. So we're going to find out. I don't know. I don't know if he's more of a veteran guy who's going to get a small role, or if they're banking on him being a little bit better than he was even last year in his short stint with Edmonton. It was not pretty. So I'm hoping he return to the 2023 form. He doesn't have to get to those scoring numbers, but even if he's putting up 7 points a game, he's hitting a 3 or 2 a game, and he's playing good defense, and he can be kind of that secondary ball handler. I think that's good for Winnipeg. Now, this next player, and as you can see on the list, had a little bit of controversy last year. So Emmanuel Elliott is back. There was quite a bit of controversy. Obviously, he was in and out of the starting lineup. Mike Taylor didn't seem to be too happy with his performances, and he did have a down year last year after exploding onto the scene in 2024. 2025 was not very good for him. He still had some good games. Obviously, when you look back at the box scores and look at his just raw numbers, you go, oh, it's not that big of a step back, but he just didn't look the same, and he didn't take the leap that I think Seabirds fans thought he was, and I think the Seabirds coaching staff. So Mike Taylor was pretty hard on him, and then obviously he left without getting permission from the Seabirds to go and play for South Sudan. So that was interesting, and then he came back, and it kind of made things awkward. So I wasn't sure if he was going to return. I had posted an article about Xavier Moon being the signing, and who, based off the Winnipeg protected players list, who they should bring back. Bielemu was obviously on that list, and as soon as I posted that article, obviously Bielemu got signed. But Elliott was on that list, and I was pretty adamant that they should probably bring him back. He was pretty good. Let's hope that 2024 was not just a flash in the pan sort of season that one hit wonder type thing. So we'll see. I'm not sure. I don't believe he's been in and out of playing professionally overseas, and so we'll see if he's got a little bit of rust to shake off. But again, he's a Winnipegger. He's going to be a fan favorite, and I think if we get at least a good chunk of 2025, but more of that 2024 version, I think the Sea Bears are in good hands. Now, last player, and a player that again I've been a big fan of, is David Walker. So he was last played for the Ottawa Blackjacks, but he spent a good chunk of time with the Scarborough Shooting Stars. last season and the previous seasons. He was a CEBL draft pick. He played at Toronto Metropolitan University. Just a big two guard who loves to get to the rim. He can score in the mid range, and he plays pretty hard defense. And he's athletic. The shooting's still coming along. He's never really been a great shooter, even at the college level. He wasn't great. So again, I'm super intrigued to just kind of see how this plays out. I'm hoping he doesn't have to have a huge role with the Sea Bears, but I'm really, really curious to see if they just give him a bench role and just say, hey, we need you to get to the bucket. And he reminds me of a lot of the guys that, again, Mike Rainbow has right now in U of W, just guys that they're athletic, they love to get to the rim, they love putting pressure on the rim. I think he's a pretty okay free throw shooter, even though he's not a great three-point shooter, but just a bigger guard. He's got some strength to him, athleticism. He's going to get to the rim, he's going to score, and he's going to play some defense. Just reminds me a lot of the guys that Mike Rainbow's tried to recruit to U of W and try to build those championship level teams around. So I've been a big fan of David Walker, so I'm very, very intrigued to see how he does with the Sea Bears in 2026. All right, so I think that's it here for the February update. When it comes to the next update, unless something major happens, whether there's major league news or whatever the case may be, I don't think we will have another episode till it'll be April, somewhere in the beginning of April, and we'll do a March recap unless you guys think that I should do a mid-March recap. If that's what you guys want to see, you guys let me know here in the comments, on social media, wherever you guys consume this content, whether it be we're now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That's the new one, is Apple Podcasts. We were on Spotify last year. If you're seeing this on YouTube, wherever, you can shoot me DM on the Heart of the Continent Hoops account, whatever the case is, or even on my personal account at Elliott Rusin. Well, it's Elliott Russenholt. But yeah, so either way, if this is something you guys want to see more of, I will do it. I was just kind of thinking, let's do monthly updates, because there will be some weeks where nothing really happens. But definitely once the season starts, we're going to be doing weekly episodes. So I think that is it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And again, follow me on socials, whether it be my personal account at Elliott Russenholt on Instagram, or at Elliott Russenh1 on Twitter, or at the Heart of the Continent Hoops account on Instagram. That's probably where most of this content is going to be now. You can obviously follow or subscribe here on YouTube and the Spotify and the Apple Podcast account. Again, thank you everybody for listening, and I will see you all next time. Peace.